Hello, Louisville. Guess who's coming to dinner? Happy Monday and welcome to Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. I am your host, Janice Carter Miller. And what a beautiful day that we have today. It's a beautiful day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Look, a tornado over the weekend everywhere. We're praying for all those people who in cities that have been kind of ravaged and devastated by our weather, which is, all you have to do is watch and see what's going on to figure out, is climate change real? I mean, I don't know how many people need somebody else to tell you something that you've seen with or the verifiers. And the verifiers sometimes don't know the truth between a wall and a hole in the head. They just don't, so you can't listen to everybody. Just deal with it with your own eyes, what you see for yourself, that climate change is real. And all those people in those cities in southern states and Arkansas that had those tornadoes come through, we hope that they're faring well. And down in Mississippi, down in Benny Thompson's territory, we're praying for them as well. Hope everybody comes through. I tried to get Colonel Pam Stevenson to send me this. It was a rant, y'all. She did a rant up at the Capitol last weekend when they passed that bill about the about LGBT community and what they, what they weren't going to be able to do. It's really funny how all of a sudden, some folks think they can tell other folks just how to live. And it's amazing because if you remember back in the day, now we have a lot of crime in our neighborhoods in most of the cities, especially the urban cities in the United States. But do you remember when folks told us that we couldn't discipline our children anymore? That's where one of the problems started. That discipline and that fear of mama and that strap, goes a long way. My mother didn't have to do nothing but threaten me. I didn't want no whoopings at all. I didn't get a whole lot, but I didn't want them either. So, first they told us we couldn't discipline our children and the women couldn't get any help if the men were in the house. Remember all these wonderful things that they did to the Black family. That's the Black family, okay? So now they're telling other people about what they can do with their children and whose children are acceptable and whose children are not acceptable. And I don't know if they were voted into office to tell other people about how to run their households. Run the government, one thing. Other folks' household, you're meddling. So on that note, tonight we're going to switch gears. We're going to meet a young lady that I had the pleasure of meeting a couple of weeks ago at the Black Professional Mixer. And we're going to talk about that. But first, I want to present to some and introduce to others my guest on Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, Miss Brenda Perry. How are you, darling?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm wonderful. I'm really glad that, we met a couple of weeks ago. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit about that mixer because, see, I thought I was going to see some old heads. I was going to just see a whole bunch of folks I knew. I knew two people in the room, and I was saying, oh, well, this is interesting. But I was very proud of the age group and how somewhat sophisticated they seemed to me. What did you think? What did you get from that?
I was pleasantly surprised too. Typically, I thought I would just see the same folks that I typically see. And like you, there were very few people that I knew in the room. And I think it was good. It was good that we are showing the younger professionals how to network, how to engage with other people. And so I was really pleasantly surprised with particularly the young people that were there, how they conducted themselves, and
absolutely,
they were delightful.
I was proud of them. I said, "Whoa!" I mean, one thing when I moved back to Louisville, one of the things that's always kind of on the forefront on my plate is I want to live in a progressive city. You know, where people are doing things and they're innovative and shaking and moving. When they say shaking and moving, I really mean shaking and moving, you know, making things happen. And since the pandemic and the social unrest in the city, there's been some shaking and there's been a little bit of moving, I must say. Because, you know, I looked at and looking at your remembering all the things that you told me that you had done before you end up where you are. I'm thinking now we've got at least 12 to 15 brand new Black CEOs and presidents of major organizations in the city of Louisville. Did you know that?
I didn't know.
Yes. I mean, it's like from Louisville Tourism to Fund for the Arts, for Metro United Way, to Goodwill, to Humana. And then you say, wow, because that's our think tank.
Right. Yeah.
I would say. And yourself, you know, that's the think tank, you know, because we need those voices to give us the one voice that we need to deal with all these issues in the city. Right. You know, one person's viewpoint and one person does not represent the Black community.
Right.
I'm saying.
Right.
You know? Right. And since that has happened, it felt like I was living in a progressive city, honey. I said, oh, excuse me. But tell me, your journey is one. Tell us a little bit about Brenda Perry, who is a native Louisvillian, because you know that we have to start there.
Right. Well, my name is Brenda Dinkins Perry. It used to be Brenda Dinkins Allen, but I'm born and raised in Louisville. My father was retired military, and so once he came to the end of his career, he moved right into the South End in Valley Station, and then raised his family there. And there were 7 of us children. And so we were raised right there. You know, most of them were much older, and so they were born at different duty stations around the world as he went throughout his military career before his retirement. So started out in Valley Station there. I was in the advanced program, and so I then got moved to Pleasure Ridge Park High School. They had an advanced program there in 2nd grade. I began there, and then went through Pleasure Ridge Park, junior high and high school. When I left there, I got a full scholarship to UK.
All right now.
And went away to UK, studied communications. And I'll tell you, you know, very early on middle school, I had the thought of being an attorney. It was in my mind. I was always rooting for the underdog. Okay. And so I always wanted to be an attorney. And I remember talking to a counselor and telling her, I want to be an attorney when I grow up. And she told me, you need to pick something else. And
Girl, don't you get tired of hearing that? That's a story. Yeah. Do you know how many people have told us we needed to do something else?
Yes. And, you know, really at that time, I graduated in 84. You know, there was no Claire Huxtable on TV. There were no, I didn't see anyone who looked like me. Right. Able to do that. And so I listened, unfortunately, for some period of time. And so I went to school, we got a journalism degree. And then after graduating, I married a military man. I moved to Germany and I worked for the federal government over there for the Department of Army in Germany, and then ended up in Fort Riley, Kansas. And there, my husband at the time got out of the military and I put him through school. And my father took ill and with lung cancer, and he ultimately died. And during that period, I did a lot of soul searching, and I thought, I don't want to be 63 years old, you know, which was the age he died at, and say, I could have been a lawyer. Right. I could have been a lawyer. And so actually still grieving, I signed up for the LSAT. I took the LSAT, which is the test to get into law school, 6 weeks later. And I ultimately got a full ride to University of Kentucky to study. Wow.
That was a journey in itself right there, huh?
That was. I had a 4-year-old. I had a 4-year-old baby at the time, and a husband. And so we came back to Kentucky so that I could go to UK. By that time, my husband at that time had gotten his certifications in IT. And so we were able to transition to Lexington and then go through law school there. I had great professors there. I had women who took me under their wing, as women professors, as a young mother trying to make it, in this male dominated profession. And so they really, helped me along, paved the way. I ended up having my second son over spring break of my last year at UK. And then I graduated 6 weeks later with a baby in tow. And so, I had a job waiting on me and began to practice law in Lexington. After a year, I was recruited by the Attorney General, Ben Chandler, and I became an assistant attorney general for several years and worked for state government. Ultimately,
what was that like?
That was fascinating. I mean, it's fascinating to see how government works. And I got a wealth of experience there. I had a young white male mentor, and he just loved to teach and to impart his knowledge to a young attorney like me. And he took me under his wing and really taught me all the intricacies of practicing law. In the Attorney General's office at that time, we served as the law firm for the state. And so anyone who got sued in state government, we would represent them. So I represented judges. I represented the University of Louisville. I represented members of the legislature anytime actions were filed. So we had a great breadth of knowledge. And so just in a few years, I just learned so much about the practice of law and arguing motions and, making your way, writing briefs for the Court of Appeals and all the way up to the Supreme Court. Wow. So it was a fascinating, wonderful experience. And I learned a great deal there.
I was going to ask you, I've never really, I only thought about this question when you said that your professors at UK took you under their wing. Because, it used to be a time in Kentucky that Black folks didn't go to UK, number one.
Right.
And so being a Black woman at UK, and you said, so you were nurtured.
Yes, I was nurtured. Yes. By Black female professors and white female professors. Okay. I'll give you an example. When I had my second son there, I was in finals and everything. And one of the professors, she said, when you take that final, you bring that baby by my office and we'll look over that baby while you take your final, And so that was really a community of saying, we're going to make sure she gets through this. And, the baby was born and I took him back and everything and said, this was that baby. And so now he's a UK graduate himself with a master's degree in IT. And so they really put some things in place that pulled me along, when you're struggling, as a wife, as a mother, as a student, a non-traditional student. I was a little bit older than most, I'm running a household, I was very blessed. I was very blessed at UK with the administration that we had there and just the community, of African-American students. I mean, we were a community and we took care of one another.
Wow. That's wonderful. I remember we lost one of my childhood friends the other day, and the biggest Black football player that went to UK, who was Wilbur Hackett, from back in the day. And he was there. And my friend, whose brother that it was, he was telling me, I asked him, I said, did you go to college in Kentucky? He said, no. He said he went to Purdue. But he said, but I wanted to go to UK with Hackett, So I'm just thinking, because I went to Kentucky State. So it was like UK, all out there by itself, Kentucky State, where most of the Blacks in the city of Louisville went. And then you've got Louisville, because I never thought about going to Louisville. I always, because my brother went to UK. So, them little sisters follow their brothers. So that's why and the HBCU thing right about now is just blowing up, and
Mhm.
I'm so very proud about it. They had the tournament on TV on Sunday, and I said, "Oh, look at us now." But
Mhm.
what I want to say in the light of all that is that our city has we've got hope yet to be progressive.
We
You
do.
know, if the young ones would allow to take some knowledge from the OGs,
Right.
because if we can share so much of our lives with them, that could help them immensely.
I
You
agree.
know, but from that mixer, I met 3, 4 people that are all on my podcast this month.
Oh, that's awesome. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
that was awesome. But meeting you, I just felt when you were standing, I said, "Are you alone?" You said yes. I said, "Well, you don't have to be. Let's sit together."
Right.
But to me, that's what we have to do. If I know I didn't want to sit by myself.
Right.
So at least I need to meet somebody. So after you worked in state government, tell me how you get back over
Yes.
here into Louisville, and then we won't leave out the nuptials either.
Okay. So I worked in state government for several years. Then I moved into education and continue to work for state government there in the Education Professional Standards Board. They're the agency that certifies all the teachers and takes their certificates when they engage in misconduct. And so I served as the chief prosecuting attorney for them for a while.
Mhm.
Worked my way up to be the general counsel and then the deputy executive director.
Okay.
Um, then I got recruited by Fayette County Schools and went there because I dabbled in education law, really at the Education Professional Standards Board, and I was there for several years. And when I left there, I always had that desire to be a business owner. So I opened the Allen Law Office in Frankfurt,
Okay.
and I had that for several years, and actually it still continues. But while I was in Frankfurt, I got divorced at about 48 years old, and at that time, I had a teenager in high school, and I had one at Center College.
Okay.
And so I had not only a law firm, but I had opened a little white tablecloth fine dining restaurant in Frankfurt as well. And so I was running two
Wow.
businesses at the time of my divorce. And really just needed health insurance. I knew running two businesses, with the restaurant industry being, what it is, it's difficult, from one week to the next, and then a law firm.
Right.
I really decided that I needed the stability, of full-time work. And so began to look for work and saw the opportunity at the airport. They were looking for inside counsel. So I applied for that job. I was fortunate enough to make it through and become the director of legal services there in 2014. And since then, again, having the benefit of being around people who want to teach you some things. Now, I knew how to
Right.
practice law when I walked in that door. I've been practicing for 16 years by that point. But
Okay.
aviation law was something different. Airport law was something different. And so to have people that want to teach you the intricacies of airport administration and running an airport. And so I was very fortunate there. I started, like I said, in 2014. And since then, I've been blessed with great leadership. Our current executive director, Dan Mann, saw something in me very early on and then promoted me to vice president within just a few months of him coming. And then I became senior vice president almost 2 years ago. And so I now oversee the finance department. I oversee our public safety department of police officers, firefighters, and EMTs. I oversee our properties department, which are all the airport properties that you see. And I oversee all the purchasing department and perform the legal work for the inside.
This is the sister that got keys to all those doors. That's wonderful.
Yes.
Wow. I mean, so when you said airport law, I didn't know that there was such a thing.
And neither did I when I began, but it's very regulated.
Okay.
Running an airport is very regulated. A lot of FAA regulations, really on so much on how you build your runways, on how you deal with runway closures, on what your contracts have to look like, what they have to say, the programs that you have to put in place.
Okay.
There are just a lot of regulations, and so it is it's a great industry to be in, really, at this day and time. And with our current leadership, with our board, and with our executive leadership team, we're part of the moving and the shaking that's happening.
Hey, all right now. I love it.
More
That's
nonstops
because
than ever
even
before.
were you a part of them naming?
Yes. As
Tell
inside
me about
counsel,
that.
that fell to me once the board and the mayor at that time and our executive director decided that we wanted to name the airport after Muhammad Ali. Then that came to me to really work with Authentic Brands Group and negotiate that deal for the renaming. So I'm honored to have to play a part in that.
Wow, that's something to put on your list of legacy items, huh?
It's a wonderful thing to have the airport named after the greatest. And really that's what we aspire to be. We
Right.
aspire to be the greatest in what
Absolutely.
we're doing. And so that name, having the airport, that gateway to the city named after Muhammad Ali, it really drives what we do.
Wow. That's something that I wish I'm really working on. I do a program with youth over at the Newburgh Community Center, and I'm trying to impart to our youth when you say Muhammad Ali, number one, I think Louisvillians basically they have the spirit of Muhammad Ali. Louisvillians are very self-confident. I think. I don't think there's too much that we think that we cannot do. And if you're good at something, Lord, everybody better look out. Because
Right.
we think we have that kind of mentality. Oh, I can do this. Or why can't I do this? Because I've jumped over a few hurdles that I never had even thought about or fathomed in my lifetime. And then I'm here, long time later, even way older than you, my dear, that I see when you look back and you say, wow, and you think what you have done in your life and coming up. And just like I said, I saw those young professionals, those young entrepreneurs, and I'm listening to you talk. You like you're a serial entrepreneur yourself. The restaurant, the law firm. But it's something that when we have something in our mind, that we just go there. Just like when you decided to go back to school, you just decided and you just did it.
Right.
And I wish our children had the same kind of motivation and inspiration that we've had. I know some of that is missing, and I'm trying to do my part to bring some of that back so that they know, that you can be something coming from this city.
Absolutely. Yes.
This city has a lot to offer.
It does. And the opportunities are there. You've got to mix it with some hard work. Education is always going to serve you well,
Right.
And then building a network and listening to those of us that have a little gray in our hair. We've been through some things, and we can let you know about those pitfalls that are coming.
Yeah.
And if you listen to us, you can avoid them a little bit, So
Right.
Yeah, but Louisville it's a progressive.
You think it's far more progressive than it had been, say, in the past? In the past 10, we've tried to catch up. We're still not there.
Right.
But in the past 10, I think we've accelerated a little bit. And especially at a strange time like the pandemic, I think we kind of shifted gears and moved to a whole nother thought level of what it was we could do and where, because things are happening everywhere.
Right. I think one thing the pandemic taught us is that you can be very mobile, in the comfort of your own home. And so now with careers, you can work for a company in San Francisco and be right here in Louisville.
Right.
And so Louisville kind of had to up its game. You know what I'm saying? Now Louisville is competing to keep the talent here, to keep the Black talent here, just your general talent. They're competing. And so they've had to become a little bit more progressive, kind of up their game to really keep us all here. Louisville has a great deal to offer. And so I think they are I think they're getting that swagger and putting that out there that this is a place, it's a
Right.
place to live. It's a
Because
place.
we had to work to get our swagger back.
That's right.
Our image was decimated for a minute.
Mm-hmm,
I
mm-hmm.
think we had an image problem, and looking around for the things that happened after Breonna, and even the DOJ a few weeks ago
Right.
finally coming in to say what we already knew.
Right.
I think that helped us a lot, you
Right.
know. But our city is kind of coming back at warp speed. You know,
It
if you
is.
think about it, it's kind of, you know, I used to, Greg Fisher, former Mayor Greg Fisher was a friend of mine.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to say, my $1 billion budget mayor. You know, when did Louisville ever have a budget of $1 billion? Come on.
Mm-hmm.
And so I used to just tease him, and he would just blush because when he was running for office, I said, I've just moved back to Louisville. I moved back to Louisville from Las Vegas. I said, but Louisville, I'm seeing if we're on the fence. I said, if we go one way, we backwards. And if we fall the other way, we could be a little bit progressive.
Right.
I said, are you going to be a progressive mayor? And he said, well, I plan to. And I think that he did the best that he could do. And he did a wonderful job. But he brought a lot of jobs
Yes.
and new industry
Mm-hmm.
to the state, all around the state. You know, so that was a good thing, that and that always helps.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. When people have jobs and they thrive, you know, then they put money into the educational system, and then the small businesses flourish. So it is an exciting cycle, really, when people are enjoying their time here and able to work and contribute to the community.
So now there's another terminal going up out at the airport. Tell me about that.
Yes. So we're doing a terminal renovation, and we're somewhat landlocked at the airport. You know, we're bound by, you know, I-65 and the Watterson and Crittenden Drive, and all of that. We're pretty much landlocked, but we are in the midst of a terminal renovation. It's probably going to be another 5 years, but we're just truly trying to make it the greatest. I mean, so a lot of the infrastructure.
Okay.
That had been neglected for a certain period of time, you know, coming out of COVID, there's more grants, and you know, that gave the legislators time to really look at infrastructure and say, hey, we've not been devoting the funds we need to make sure our infrastructure in the country is up to par, and it needs to be. And so they've been putting some emphasis on that, and at the airport, in our administration with our board, we've been putting some emphasis on that. And so, you know, it's new bathrooms and new wayfinding. You'll see new signs at the airport. Our parking structure has gotten some upgrades. So now that when you go into park, as soon as you pull in, you can see, well, how many spaces are on this row? And they've got green lights and red lights. So you can just look down and say, oh, there's a green light. So there's a parking space right there.
Uh-oh.
So it really, you know, it's those customer amenities that we're working on that allow people to just get in and out of the airport seamlessly.
Oh, I like that one about the parking. Because I'm the one that's going up and down looking for a parking space.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
But you know, it's a wonderful thing to be a part. And I don't know if the airport was really where you thought you would end up when you were looking for this job so you needed some insurance, but look where you ended. I mean, that's the gateway to our city, aside from the bridges, but that's the real fastest way to get here.
Right.
You know.
And you know, the thing is, when I was a little girl, and we'd always, you know, come to the airport to pick up family that had flown from South Carolina to visit for a while. It was always exciting to come around the curve of the airport, you know, and to see the airport. And so little did I know, you know, that a few decades later, you know, I would be a part of this gateway, you know, this huge entity that, allows UPS Worldport to exist, that helped to bring, the first vaccines here, that,
Right.
is one of the busiest in North America in terms of cargo, and that allows people to see their loved ones. It's a great feeling to be a part of that in the community.
You know what I think about as a little girl? I don't know if your family ever took you, where we used to be able to pull up on a side road and watch the planes take off and land. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Lord have mercy, I'm talking about my age. But there was a road, and that was so much fun to me to sit there and watch that happen. And I don't know what we were thinking. My mother tells a wonderful story that the first time that she got on a plane. She took a plane from Louisville to Cincinnati. I said, girl, please. She said.
Short one. That was a short flight.
And she said she and her two girlfriends got dressed up and they went and got them tickets to go to Cincinnati. I said, Mama, I said, you went to Cincinnati on a plane? She said, yeah. She said, it was just a hop, skip, and a jump. I said, I guess so. That's funny. I remember my mother telling me that story. But I wanted to bring you on because, your resume was quite impressive.
Thank you.
And a lot of times when you don't know some of the people that do some of the heavy lifting, like I never knew who the deputy that there was a Black woman that was a deputy attorney general, right? In the state of Kentucky. Because now, Kentucky, being as red as we are, you have made me not feel so bad about it. Because the love that they showed you at Big Blue up in Lexington at UK, and even in Frankfurt,
right.
And then coming to Louisville, because we're still a very segregated city.
Right.
Even though we shouldn't be, because at football and basketball games, we love each other.
Right.
High five and hug and kiss and all of that, and leave the game and separate once again. But I thank you for your contribution.
Well, thank you.
To helping to name that airport after the greatest. And you went to say, we want to be the greatest. I guess so. That's wonderful. That all sounds very good to me. So what do you see happening as far as the airport goes in the next, say, 10 years? And how can our community become more involved or in what goes on? Like, I know you all have a board, but is there a place for community input?
Yes. Well, we have what we call the Community Noise Forum. And so that is a meeting, I believe it occurs once a month. And our administration will engage with the community in terms of the impact of noise. When you run an airport, there is going to be a certain degree of noise that comes along with those planes coming and going.
Right.
So they meet, I believe, every month in the community. They'll post that, when the meeting is, and we'll have a community noise forum. Moving forward, I would say in the next 10 years, nothing but growth. We've been working on a master plan, and the FAA will have you kind of do a comprehensive look at your airport, some, extrapolations on where you've been and where you're going in terms of your capacity, and your passenger activity. And so that has been going on, and the future looks bright for Louisville in terms of the airport. We had a banner year right before COVID. About 4 million passengers in the terminal in that year. And so we're anticipating to get back to that and then to surpass that. And we are constantly going after more nonstops. That's really what, what people want. You want to get from point A to point B as quickly as possible so that you can put your toes in the sand, or do whatever you want to do when you get to your destination.
Right.
And so we're looking at more nonstops and increasing.
Louisville has one of the highest. It costs to come to that airport from West Coast to Louisville, and some other places. Louisville is a little bit more expensive.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, what we're doing is we got more nonstop. So now, for example, we have Breeze, that goes out to the West Coast. And so we've got some of those ultra low cost carriers that are starting to get to some of those destinations that might have been a little more expensive before.
Right.
And so, that always helps when we're bringing in those ultra low cost carriers. So you can do a little bit more traveling. Really, with the price of gas now, you can fly probably cheaper than you can drive
than driving. Right.
And so I anticipate that we'll continue to see growth in that regard with our passenger activity and more nonstops.
Well, Miss Brenda, I want to thank you for being my guest today.
You're very welcome.
And you have to maybe keep me, if you see something's going on and you're going and I should be there, please just send me an email. So we can stay in touch and sit with each other and get to know each other better.
Definitely.
If there's ever anything or any news that you want to share about what's going on out at the airport, just you can holler at your girl. And we can do this again, because I'm here to impart information to the community and let them meet people who are doing some heavy lifting and some great work, and they just don't know who's behind the scenes. It's nice to know who's behind the scenes. Came home and told my husband, I said, I met a lovely lady. I said, and she turned out, she was soul sister, was a senior VP out at the airport. I said, oh, excuse me. But then I remembered all the things in the Attorney General's office. And I'm saying, well, how you get from there to over here? So I said, so we need to talk. But I'm glad you were able to find the time to come on. Guess who's coming to dinner? See, it's dinner time right now, Brenda. Bon appetit, darling. Have a blessed evening. Have a jantastic week.
All right. Thank you for having me.
Stay in touch.
To do what you do. All right. Thanks.
Thank you. Have a good one.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. That was Miss Brenda Perry, Senior Legal VP at Louisville Muhammad Ali International Airport. You got to say Louisville, then Muhammad Ali. I couldn't type all of that on my introduction because I was using too many characters. So I had to just say Muhammad Ali International Airport. But that was Miss Perry. I hope you enjoyed that conversation. And she's out at the airport. She had some say in facilitating the name change for the airport to be Louisville Muhammad Ali International Airport, in which we are very proud of that. So on that note, y'all, it's dinner time. It's time to go get something to eat. Bon appetit. This will play again on Friday. And next Monday, we're going to next Monday, we're going to have Mr. Theron Mackey. And he's going to come on and tell you about his business, which is a staffing business and development, workforce development that he has going on in the city, that new industry is coming into town and people have to know how to do these jobs. So that's what he's doing with his position. And if you don't know about him, you need to tune in and so you can find out about him. On that note, au revoir. Bon appetit. I'll see you on Monday.